Hey everyone, and welcome to Brawlhalla Weekly, Episode 8. My name is partofthecreed, your host.
I'm physeK, one of your co-hosts.
I'm TWK Smash, your other co-host.
And today our special guest is going to be eggsoup, who won the first BMG-sponsored BCS tournament this week in the 2v2 NA battle with his partner Pugsy. Egg also won first place at the first Brawlhalla LAN tournament at Final Round and has been a long-standing community member. But first we're going to hop into news for the week. So, dev streams, not much happened this week. There was a lot of hype around BCS, and we'll be talking more about that throughout the podcast a lot. But, the devs were all very excited. Servers were fixed for the most part, we hope, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But there weren't any huge announcements. As far as servers go, they were replaced. BMG went with a different server provider. Kipper stayed up until 6 a.m. fixing this. That guy, what a god. But
I swear, he's a robot.
We all love Tiferus.
We all love Tiferus. But basically, switch providers, these are for the core servers, so this helps with like matchmaking and stuff. It's not going to help any sort of lag you're feeling in certain games. That's for the regional servers, and those were not changed. But at this point, at least, you won't be kicked from lobbies. The servers won't just, have sudden outages where the game says you can't connect to the servers. Things like that are handled by the core server, and that should all be fixed, which is great. And, hey, BCS happened. Didn't seem to be any lag, so it looks like everything's worked out so far. If you are still getting things, you can always email Brawlhalla at support@brawlhalla.com.
Yeah.
But that's about it for dev streams.
Pretty much. But I think that does move us on to the community news. So, as you mentioned, BCS happened. Alright, so this was massive. This was the start of pretty much the season 1. So, we're going to be talking about BCS a lot. I mean, I guess you can kind of figure out why. These guys, wherever they are, pointing on the screen here. Alright. So, we had a ton of viewers for this stream. We were logging more than 400. I heard some reports that it peaked around 500 at one point. So, that's amazing. I mean, that's fantastic growth, and I think we're just going to see that continue to keep going up.
Yeah, I really hope so. I think the more viewers, the more exposure that Brawlhalla can get, the better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll be amazing. And then, as far as the actual number of people playing in the event, after all the other things were handled out, final seeding, check-ins, all done, we had 60 teams participating in the tournament that day. So that's about 120 players, which is insane.
Yeah, definitely the biggest tournament we've had to date.
I'm actually really glad that it happened how it happened, because I remember seeing the bracket before all of the check-ins happened, and there were something like 150 teams signed up.
Yeah.
And while it's a bit of a shame that not everyone got to compete, including some big names like Z-Zombie and Magma Bob, who showed up just a few minutes late, it was really great to see a whole ton of people who were really interested in playing and competing in the game, even if not all of them were actually able to make it.
Yeah. And I mean, I will give the quick plug right now, for these upcoming BCS tournaments. It's going to be handled through the Discord. You can find the posts for that everywhere. And read all the rules, read all the things that you have to do for check-in, whatever, and you'll be all set to go. But, definitely, I know we've been talking about this a lot, leave the BCS team some feedback. I know they were accepting a lot of it this past weekend and leading up to, and even from the previous season, and they're always looking for more. They want to streamline the process as much as possible, make it the best experience for everyone that wants to be involved.
And there will be a link in the description for where and how you can do that.
And one other quick thing, this week it was a 2v2 NA tournament. This was for US players. Next week is going to be a 2v2 tournament, also with $1,000 on the line for EU players. They're going to be spreading them out with different regions and all that. There will be 1v1 tournaments, and this is all in addition to the regional qualifiers that'll be happening. So if you don't know about all of that, you go to what is it, bcs.brawlhalla.com?
Brawlhalla.com/BCS.
Whatever. And yeah, you can check it out.
All right. And I think we can stray a little bit away from BCS. I'm sure it'll come up later in the next section, but we've got some exciting news. I know you guys love hearing about new sponsors all the time. We got a new one. All right. Proud to announce Shoot and Kill SNK Esports. They've picked up a couple people. Some of them may look and sound a little familiar.
Who have they picked up?
I really want to know.
Well, I mean, physeK is one of them. physeK now part of Shoot and Kill Esports.
I had no idea.
As well as Aurum. Yeah, that's right. You know that guy. I love that guy. I've known them for, God, over a year now. So he is one of the players on Shoot and Kill Esports. But wait, that's not all.
More.
They've also picked up this man, partofthecreed. Yeah, that's right, as a streamer. So he is sponsored streamer, SNK Esports, Shoot and Kill.
I just want to take a quick second to just say, Creed, I don't know what kind of work you're going to be doing with the cameras, but TWK is like pointing.
I'm just pointing
He's
everywhere.
pointing
Like,
all over the place. I'm just waiting for you to be moving the cameras around
everyone's just
along with
everywhere.
his fingers. But
I'll make sure to place everyone in a position so that every time TWK points at something, it's the wrong direction.
all right.
Then it'll look great.
He just has
But
to
I
go
do want to
like
say, like,
Have
it's
to
really
dodge.
it's really cool that we've got more esports organizations picking up people as streamers specifically, because the streaming
Yes.
streaming in Brawlhalla specifically, especially on Twitch, is one of the huge things that's really helped develop this community. There are all these top players who stream a lot, and I think that like Twitch and Reddit are like the two huge community hubs that have really brought people together. And so getting more esports organizations like involved in the streaming area of things is, I think, really going to help both exposure for Brawlhalla and just get more people involved into streaming, because I think it's a lot of fun, and I think that it's going to just help everyone involved.
I'm also just really excited that more sponsors are coming in, period. I think that the more sponsors there are, the bigger Brawlhalla is going to get, the more competitive it's going to get. And I know that there are a lot of really talented players out there who are still looking for sponsorships, or who might not necessarily know if they should be looking for sponsorships. If you do think you might want some more information, just contact Techie10. He is, what a guy. He knows everything there is to know and more, and he can really help you out getting all that started.
Yeah, super good. Recommend. He's just been doing a phenomenal job, just for the love of the game, setting people up with all these different sponsors. But love of the game does bring us to the Brawlhalla skin contest. That's right, we've got a whole bunch coming in. It's been up on the Reddit. I know people have been pouring in submissions. We were just talking about a couple of them right before we started recording. I always love seeing these things pop up. So, the details on this one. We've got Lethal Storm. That's with a 3 and a 0. I think you can guess where. Creed will probably have that information here. They're hosting a skin contest. $35 in prizes up for grabs, as well as community colors. So definitely get your submissions in, see what you can dream up, put in there, check out what everyone else has put in. I'm always excited to see like how things rank out and what comes up.
And this is actually the second skin contest that this community has seen, and the first one had some really amazing results. I know, I really loved it because the first two placing ones were Sentinels, but this time I know we've got some really amazing skins. I've seen really, really great stuff coming out of a lot of different contestants, and I'm really excited to see them either put out more stuff to get more entries in, because I've seen some people entering more than once, or if some other people can get in on that and make some even more cool stuff.
Yeah, so if you're even, a slightly, or an artist who thinks he can make even a slightly good skin, just give it an attempt. No harm in trying, and put it out there. I know BMG loves seeing these skins. It's great that we're having more skin contests, because we did have one, I want to say like a couple months back,
I think it was in the second or third weekly roundup.
Yeah, and it was really neat. So, more skins. Hey, even if you don't win, you could very easily get on the official Brawlhalla Community roundup anyway.
Also, don't forget that you don't necessarily have to draw in the style of the Brawlhalla characters. I have seen some submissions that are, oh, I think Scarlet should look like this, and it's drawn in a completely different art style, but they tried to make it still recognizable as Scarlet. So even if you don't feel like you can emulate that art style specifically, you can still do your best.
Yeah, that's just always so cool. I'm excited. So get those submissions in. Ends this week, I know Creed was just talking about, but definitely get those in. But there are a few other small things to do here. Nice little additions on the Reddit. Oddling. This guy, I swear.
Oddling, please.
Why, man? Just revived Core Puns with his coral meme.
Coral.
So, thanks for that. I'm just
We
waiting
all
for
need
some
more
to
core
like,
puns.
Snakehead, coral.
Yeah. The old
It'll
Walking
happen.
Dead meme.
All right, so moving that one aside real quick, we have some fantastic news. Everybody's been waiting for this. I know my personal countdown has been on.
Mm-hmm.
It's, a little later than I expected. I wanted that final push. Crocky. First level 100 character in the game,
Woo-hoo.
I think. Yeah, he just pushed Ada over. So level 100. And you know what's really surprising? No rainbow color.
No rainbow color BMG, please.
I don't know why they'd give a rainbow color for a level 10 Ada.
So yeah, I was wondering what would happen when, the character hit 100. Would it reset to 0? Did they put in the code to get 100? Turns out it just cuts off the third digit, so it looks like Crocky has a level 10 Ada with a black skin. It's
I really liked the the reasoning that Tiverus put in on Reddit. He was like, "Oh yeah, when you hit 100, you prestige down to 10, and then when you hit 100 again, you prestige to 11. So once you prestige that final time to 100, then you get it."
Then you get it. So all Crocky needs to do is get 99 more level 100s, basically. And this level 100, he's started grinding this ever since they first put levels into the game, which I'm guessing was around September-ish. Which puts us at 9 months. Yeah. So all he needs to do that 99 more times, 9 months. If we're rounding, it should only take 1,000 months.
Well, not really, because I know he said at one point, I think he was still in the 80s or the low 90s at this point, that getting one level of his Ada took more experience than getting a brand new character from level 1 to level 40. So it's
basically
it's
1,000 years.
Yeah, give him 1,000 years, he'll have his rainbow Ada.
He'll have his
eventually.
I would like to imagine that the rainbow color is kind of one of those things that it can only be seen by the mantis shrimp, since they always see all these brilliant colors that we can't. So rainbow Ada's there. You just have to be a mantis shrimp.
Can't see it.
Makes sense. Alright, with that, I think we can move on from the community news to the tournament news. And of course, with BCS happening, this was a big week for tournaments. The BCS 2v2 tournament happened. It was the first in their series of a whole bunch of tournaments. I think they're doing 18 between now and... 20 between now and BCS. One for each region and as a qualifier, and then 14 different $1,000 tournaments for money, and this was the very first one, so it was super hype, and I'm hoping that they keep on getting more and more hype as time goes on. And the winners, our first place winners, were actually eggsoup and physeK. This wasn't quite what we expected, and we'll get to that. In second place, we had Boomy and Remy, a very, very strong team that we've seen compete before. In third place, we had Stevenator and Twilight, who were kind of the expected winners. But they got taken out by Boomy Remy. They actually got beat by Boomy Remy twice, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it was very interesting to see. Basically, Boomy and Remy stepped up their game, came to the plane and went, hey, we can beat Steven Twilight. I actually want to say they predicted, or Boomy specifically, I believe, predicted this exact result. He was like, Egg and Pugs are going to get first, Boomy Remy second, Steven Twilight third. Which, I mean, with everyone thinking Steven Twilight would get first, that was sort of out of left field, but Boomy called it. Like,
Props to him.
Yeah, he sort of knew the layout. He was like, hey, I have a pretty good idea for how these teams are going to work. We'll be able to ask Egg in, just a few minutes how he felt during the tournament process, but, until then, I think it was pretty cool having this sort of surprise of this top three that ended up happening.
But that really wasn't the only surprise of the tournament. We had actually a lot of other interesting stuff happen. We had some teams come pretty much out of nowhere, end up landing in the top 8, the top 6. We had Hella and Mother Russia, which I've never even heard of them before, and they went way up there. They even gave, was it Steven Twilight a run for their money? Mm-hmm. It was very close games.
I believe they took a stock off of Egg and Pugsy, or a match off of Egg and Pugsy, too.
Yeah,
they
played
so. Really well.
And then also, from the Frost Clan, we had Dog and Mini Vessin, a pair of Taros players who, honestly, I have no idea how they made it work. They had an extremely strong showing against Egg and Pugsy. Major props to them. Even though they didn't win, that was huge stuff from them.
Both of these teams placed in top 6. I mean, me and T2K, who were analyzing, we were just going nuts over there. Like,
shameless plug.
These people.
I loved seeing, the fresh faces and them performing really well. A lot of these players that we haven't seen do particularly well in 1v1s or even enter 1v1s at some point. And them just tearing it up in this 2v2.
I remember when 2v2 first came out, there was this issue of, do we even need 2v2? Like, it's just going to be find 2 good 1v1 players, and they'll make a team and they'll win. And for a while, it's been that. It's been, hey, who are the best 1v1 players? And they'll just go in, and they'll just play all their skills that they learn in 1v1, and nothing will make 2v2 unique. This was incredible. All 4 of these players are people who don't really place in top 8 of 1v1 tournaments. But here they are doing extremely well, going toe-to-toe with these other teams that we are more familiar with in 2v2, using these concepts of synergy and, understanding what their opponents are doing and what they're doing. And that's something that's really awesome.
Which, of course, isn't to say that 2 good 1v1 players can't have good synergy, but it was really great to see some more unknown players getting this really, really good stuff going. Moving on from BCS, even though that was definitely the biggest news of the week, there was actually another tournament that had some pretty surprising results, and that was the Gravy Cancel EU tournament. And I didn't see it when it happened, but I watched some of the highlights just a little while ago, and man, it was pretty crazy. The top 3 are not who you would have expected. We had Aram placing in first, and he beat Dobrein 3-0 in grand finals to win. That's right.
Dobrein, who
took second place.
Everyone thought was, hey, number 1 global. He's beating Daiku. He's beating everyone. He doesn't play in any tournaments just because of the lag. He lives all the way in Russia. But EU tournaments, not a problem for him, right? But here he is losing 3-0. And what happened?
First, I just want to say, Aram played Azoth. This is not a typical tournament pick that we see. We don't usually see lots of top-level Azoths. I think I only really know of Arkosh, maybe, who plays Azoth in a really competitive environment, and he also mainly plays 2v2s. So, seeing this Azoth just doing so well was absolutely incredible. And once again, that was a 3-0 victory against Dobrein. And Dobrein's journey through the tournament was actually a little bit unexpected. He was sent to loser's bracket in round 3, which I don't think anyone would have expected, and it was actually by someone from the Frost clan once again, known as Trip. It was a 2-1 match, and unfortunately that one wasn't streamed, so I couldn't really figure out what happened, but the Frost clan once again kind of making a name for themselves. When he went into loser's bracket, he had a really tough lineup to go through, including eggsoup, Maltiger, Frostcake, Zaloxery, and Azure, but he made it through all the way to the grand finals. He used a whole ton of legends, including Core, and I'm personally wondering if he could have possibly won if he had just stuck with his kind of top legends, so to speak. In third place, we had this guy that I just mentioned, Azure, and he played extremely well. He actually took out Zaloxery and Frostcake, so those are also some top opponents. It was kind of surprising to not see Zaloxery get top 3. He lost to Azure in winner's quarters. It was actually a Roland versus Roland matchup, and I'm wondering if that might have had something to do with it. I know that lately Zaloxery has been playing mainly Ember and Koji, so seeing him play Roland was a little different.
And I think that definitely hurt him. You know, he was playing mostly Ember during Combo Breaker, which is, of course, where he won first place. And seeing that Roland pick was a little weird, so that might have hurt him.
Yeah, and he ended up losing to Dobrein in losers semifinals, and I'm guessing he doesn't feel too bad about losing to Dobrein. And, of course, there was no Daiku in this tournament, so we, of course, can't compare Aram or Azure to how they would have done against Daiku, but it was really nice to see some new faces at the top of EU tournaments, because, especially winning first place, that's really, really new. And that's pretty crazy. I know both of these guys have been in the EU scene a while, but it's really great to see them getting some recognition. Last thing in the tournament section, real quick, is Berthin held a 3v3 Brawl Ball tournament. The winner was a team known as BooMG, which was comprised of Foda, Stevenator, and Magma Bob. Foda and Magma Bob together were often, in the old days, known as the strongest 2v2 Brawl Ball team in existence, and BMG, just as a collective, are kind of known for being Brawl Ball gods, because apparently they play it all the time in the office. The RKT clan took second place, and a group of guys named NBS took third place. Brawl Ball, of course, takes some different skills than actual fighting tournaments, so it's, even though they're not necessarily well known, good on them for doing well. And do you guys, I don't know what you guys think, should we have more Brawl Ball tournaments moving forward?
I think it's definitely pretty cool. You know, it's a new game mode, and people are starting to try to take it more seriously. I know Foda's someone who's been super into Brawl Ball, you know, more Brawl Ball all the time. And I can see it getting its niche.
I like it. I just love that game mode. It's fun to watch. You know, apparently BMG has like the secret strats.
I can confirm.
He's the main coach man. Like he's been thinking. So I want to see that playbook, you know, hit the streets.
All right, but with that, we're going to wrap up the news section and move on to our special guest for the week. eggsoup, can you hear us?
Hello, I can hear you.
Hello. So, eggsoup, why don't you introduce yourself real quick? Where are you from? How old are you?
Hi everyone, I'm eggsoup, 15-year-old Brawlhalla player, residing in New York City.
Wow, so this week, you and Pugsy won first place in the 2v2 NA BCS tournament. Were you expecting this result, and had you practiced much with Pugsy before this?
Well, I know Pugsy was a little bit more confident. Me personally, I wasn't expecting us to get first place, and the reason being is that, you know, a few weeks back when this tournament was announced, EXO actually messaged me, or Daiku as he is known now, hey, I can't play in this because I'm from EU, so why don't you team with Pugsy? I'm like, okay. And basically what happened is Pugsy was gone for like a full week, and then I was gone for 5 days after that, and then Pugsy was gone for another like 3 days. So until the day before the tournament, we had not played together a single time.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I mean, Pugsy is my 1v1 practice partner, so we do know how each other play. He knows how to really, really support me and my play style in 2v2. And so we have a great understanding of how, like I said, how we play, but we really had not practiced at all before the tournament.
Wow.
It's pretty
That's-
funny considering, you go from not having practiced at all, and especially like from what I understand, Pugsy just in general was out of practice in Brawlhalla since he'd been away, and there were like some computer issues, so he hadn't gotten to
yeah.
play very much, and you guys just went in there and won first place.
Oh yeah, man, Pugsy went in the whole tournament. We only dropped 3 games. It's crazy.
That's so crazy. Well, moving on from BCS, you also placed first at Final Round, which was the first LAN tournament that we ever really saw in Brawlhalla. Do you want to go to more LANs in the future and hopefully keep on winning them?
Oh, I want to go to as many LANs as I can. LAN is the best thing ever. If you're a Brawlhalla player or if you're just a video game player in general, just going to these LANs, even just not even participating, just meeting everyone, it's the best. It's such a great experience. And of course, I hope to win. I'm improving. As of this past week, I've been trying some new stuff. Hopefully I can show that off pretty soon. But I gotta work hard because there's some monsters over at EU.
Very nice. So why don't you tell us real quick, how and when did you first discover Brawlhalla?
How and when? Well, I actually, I can't remember. It's either I was browsing free-to-play, or one of my friends told me about it. I don't know which one it is, but on May 3rd, 2015, I found Brawlhalla. I'm like, hey, this looks cool. I signed up a beta key, but I was too impatient, so I bought Founder's Pack, and I played it for about 20 minutes, and I'm like, hey, this is cool. And then I completely forgot about it for a month. And then I picked it up again, and I saw on Reddit there was this tournament called the Sweet and Salty Saturday Smackdown. I'm like, hey, this is cool. I want to train up for this. So it was the first tournament I ever played, and I placed 7th in that, which was pretty cool for a relatively new player. So I started about June, so I've been playing for about a year now.
Nice.
Wow.
I know that when you first sort of joined in, you were the wild card guy who was sort of all wacky.
Oh yeah.
Like, here comes eggsoup.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. So over the span of that year, you've been I've noticed a couple clan names in front of that egg soup. So what clans have you been a part of?
Well, in my Brawlhalla career, I've been a part of 2 clans. The very first of which was JV4. One of our key members was partofthecreed.
Good time.
Basically, when I joined JV4, I was very hesitant to join clans. I didn't see any real benefit. I didn't want to get into any clan drama or anything like that. I thought I was just better on my own. Oh, was I wrong? I joined JV4, meet some really great friends that I still talk to today. I'm still teammates with some of them today, and I just had a great experience. It was so much fun. We kind of trolled around, we practiced. At the moment of the creation, we weren't really a top tier clan, but we worked hard together. We participated in a lot of events. By the time the first FOTA clan battle came around, we actually ended up taking 2nd in that, which was pretty big as a team.
I mean, we almost took first.
We almost took first, but
we went completely undefeated in that round robin, and then
we got
just
3-0'd.
barely beat us out when we got the bracket.
Yeah, that was it was a great experience. Like I said, I made a lot of friends. But by the end of about November, I was feeling that JV4, for me at least, was becoming a little bit casual. I really wanted to push myself to be the best, rather than being, a top 10 player, just hovering around there. I want to be number 1. And so when EXO approached me, Daiku, with this idea of making this clan of people he sees a lot of potential in, and just working them to improve, I took that opportunity, I joined up in Straw Hats was the name we went under. We went back to Boo, and that's where I am now.
Yeah, that's not a terribly long journey, but JV4 was definitely known as one of the strongest, housing a lot of the super strong players in the game. I know that when I first started playing, JV4 was pretty much on top of the leaderboards most of the time. So that's a pretty impressive resume you've had, even though it's only been 2 clans. Moving on from that, you've been known to have a really, really strong aggro playstyle ever since you joined up. You play Hattori, very fast, lots of attacks, lots of high-pressure situations. Is that really intentional, or is that just how you enjoy playing? And to further that, do you think that the playstyle is still viable, given the current state of the meta right now?
Well, okay. So my playstyle revolves around like one simple fact, and that is that I'm a super, super impatient person. I could care less about like people thinking I'm quote unquote a cancerous playstyle or something like that. Like other people's view of me really doesn't shift how I play. The only thing that does is that I just want to hit people, and I just want to go super fast as I can, end the game in 2 minutes, stuff like that. And in terms of that kind of playstyle, playing hyper aggressive, like always in your face, I think that playstyle is stronger than ever right now in this current meta, especially because of the recent dodge changes. It's so effective. But there's my playstyle is a lot of what you see I like me doing is not actually like very beneficial or very efficient. My playstyle, I don't do spacing, I don't dodge read. The only thing that I do is react to what my opponent is doing. And I don't think that's actually an effective playstyle, because in this current state of the meta, weapons that are very popular are things like sword, katars, guns. And while I don't have that much trouble like getting in people's faces, what happens is these moves that have super fast startup that I can't react to, like Katar Nair or Sword Sair, I start to get hit by these like stray hits, and I keep trying to run in and hit people, and I get hit by these things, and it just stops my aggression. I start to slow down, and that's not what I'm good at. I could play slow, but I'm just not good at that.
I know
And
the
so
feeling.
something that I've been working on is starting to space, starting to dodge read. And I think recently my results have become much more consistent, and that's because I've improved on these things. There's a certain point where when you play extremely hyper reactive, you can get so good, you can get up to the very top, but when people's punish games start to improve, you start to drop off. And I think that's why the playstyle that I had for all the way up until, I'm gonna say, March or May even, it's not gonna work in this current meta.
And so, are you mentioned that you're taking steps to improve. Do you think that by the time you get around to Worlds, it's going to be like a new egg soup, and you can take on some of the bigger dogs that previously have basically been consistently in top 3?
I feel like right now the like you said, the monsters at the top 3 right now for me, it's like uncrackable. Like I can't beat them. But like I am trying to like improve all the time, and Worlds is still a good 6 months, 7 months away. You never know. Like I might quit the game, although I highly doubt that. I am trying to rapidly improve, get to that top level, so I believe in myself. By Worlds, I'm gonna be at the top.
All right, and we look forward to it. So now I'm just going to go through some of the standard top player questions that we like to ask. First of all, what games do you like to play in your free time besides Brawlhalla?
Well, recently my off game, like when I'm kind of chilling out, has been Overwatch. It's a lot of fun. But I like playing like Borderlands 2, Just Cause 2, Orcs Must Die, some stuff that I can play on my own while just trying to have some fun and chill.
Nice, nice. If you weren't dedicating yourself to becoming a top player in Brawlhalla, what other hobbies or careers might you be pursuing?
I'd probably be doing a lot more extracurriculars at school. I've played piano for ever since I was 3 years old, so I'd probably be doing a lot of that. Yeah, probably be doing
You're
that.
just getting into high school, I believe. Do you know what you might want to focus on, like in school later on, or is that not something you've thought about?
Um, I really have no idea. I'm gonna like take this video gaming, take this streaming, see how far it goes. But at the end of the day, I need to. I'm going to college. I need to get a degree in something. But I really haven't thought of it.
Okay. So, egg soup, where does your IGN come from?
Oh, that's okay. So I've gone through a series of names. I'm not gonna list them because they're pretty embarrassing. But basically, I overthink stuff like this really, really hard. I try to think of a name that no one else has had. And so one day I was just sitting on my computer, clacking away at names, trying to think of something that I thought fit me. And so I just thought of egg soup. I don't know why. I must have been hungry or something. I just thought of it. I checked in Steam, the Steam name list. No one else had it, so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna keep this name. I'm gonna make it my brand, and here we are.
All right, well, you heard it here first. Next time you guys want to think of a new name, just don't eat for a while, and you will basically come up with the best type of name. And no caps, right?
Oh, no cap.
I don't think microwave pizza is quite as
Well,
effective.
I don't know, man. Microwave pizza sounds like a pretty great.
I might be going through a change here, guys.
Just imagining what could have been.
And finally, who is your favorite legend in the game?
All right, I'm gonna get some hate from this from the lower elo community, but my favorite legend in the game is Hattori. Love her movement speed. That's actually the reason why I'm still playing her. Basically, the week Gravity Cancels came out, Daiku, who I was like teammates with, because I didn't really have a main. I played Sentinel, I played Bodvar. I was kind of all over the place, and he wanted to show me this. He wanted to play some customs. I'm like, okay. And the very first stock, he's playing Hattori, and he hits me with a Gravity Cancel N-Sig off the edge. And from that moment, I was in love. N-Sig is his favorite move in the game. I picked Hattori because of that, and I stuck with her, like I said, because of the mobility.
It's almost become a running joke at this point. Egg soup and his N-Sig.
Neutral
N-Sig,
sig the
man.
game.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you so much, Egg Soup, for coming on to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
See ya.
Bye.
All right. That moves us on to the balance and meta discussion portion of the podcast. So, patch 2.17, we did have a balance patch this week, which is some good stuff and some not so significant stuff. Oh, I mean, right off the bat, when the balance patch came out, one of the first signs in the patch notes was, hey, this one's not very big. Which I think if I'd told everyone 2 weeks ago that the next balance patch would not be big, they would have freaked out. But last podcast, we did talk about gauntlets, and we said, hey, maybe gauntlets don't need very much change. And lo and behold, not very much change went into the patch. As far as gauntlets goes, the only thing that really changed was Core's side sig was toned down just a little bit and made clearer so that people aren't as surprised by it, because it does come out pretty fast. But so far as gauntlets themselves go, the weapon, we've got that 50% win rate. People are feeling pretty good about it. We haven't seen it very much in tournaments yet. We saw Dobrein bust it out for a little bit, and he played really well. So I'm pretty happy about this. You guys are happy about this?
Yeah, I'm very happy with where the gauntlets are right now. I think that they're definitely not way too good. I think that as time goes on and people figure out how to play with and against them, we might see a few more changes. I just have the feeling we are going to get a few changes to moves having maybe a little lower startup or a little more recovery, but overall I think that it's in a really good place and people are adapting to them well, and they seem pretty fun to play with to me.
Yeah, I think we just needed that extra little bit of time to see how people would adapt to them, what it would actually shake out to be, before any changes were being made. So it kind of sitting here for a little bit, I think is okay, because they didn't seem like crazy broken. They have, like, you know, I think as BMG said, they perform really well at, like, well, a little bit better than expected is really, I think, what
at
they
like
said.
super low ranks.
At the
Right.
lower ranks.
Yeah.
But then, like, they fall off, like, pretty hard in the upper ranks. So I think it's just once people get more of that experience, which I think this, you know, first 2 weeks has definitely given them, we'll start to see the answers to the gauntlets becoming more commonplace.
Other big thing that got changed was Spear got much harder to do combos with. I know people were basically getting up in arms about this a couple weeks back. Neutralite got reduced stun time by 3 frames, which doesn't sound like very much, but when it's a difference between a true combo and a combo with 3 extra dodge frames, that's huge.
That's big.
And that makes it much harder to get off, whatever you want off of those neutralites, which neutralite already does come out pretty fast. So I think that definitely helps. Sidelight got increased variable force, which if you're not as familiar with the difference between variable and fixed force, almost sounds like a buff. Basically what this does is that when your opponent is at higher health, orange or red, when someone does a sidelight, they'll get sent, flying off further, which makes it much harder to follow up with a chase dodge downlight, which was pretty much the standard for a little while. And you can really only pull that off at like white healths now. So that, along with the neutralite change, I think it makes it so that Spear gets more basically strings instead of true combos. So I think that's pretty welcome.
I think that that's definitely a much needed change. I think that this Spears combo game was just it just was a little bit too strong. And as it is, I still think that the strings are very strong, but since you can dodge out of them now, since it's not, a guaranteed combo, I think that that's definitely a big help.
Yeah, I think that one was definitely a pretty nice one, because it leaves it like intact for that low health, and it does around like 50 damage, but every other weapon has around a 50 damage combo at low health as well. It just makes it stop working a lot sooner than it did previously. I think that's where a lot of the perceived issues came from. That it's just like they can just keep doing this again and again and again, and it's like, all right, like, enough already.
Yeah. So that's pretty neat. All right. So that basically covers the patch itself, right? And there is some time left, so I want to go over something that I've sort of been thinking about these past few weeks. I know I've said, hey, I went to Combo Breaker and everything makes sense now, but I do want to go into this one topic a little more in depth, and that's about this issue of adapting to the game versus complaining about the game. And I see this a lot with, obviously the mid-level and lower players, people who are just sort of getting into the game and starting to understand the deeper meta of, weapons and things. Those kinds of people are prone to saying, hey, I'm not really sure if this weapon feels too OP. Like, could you guys nerf it, please? And, there is that issue of, hey, at the top level, people are struggling to use this weapon. Like, it's balanced, and there are ways to counter it, and there are ways to get better at it. And that's a valid argument. But we've also got top players who are saying, hey, the game's really unbalanced, and, you gotta nerf Spear, you gotta buff Axe, things like that. And while I understand where the complaints are coming from, there's 2 things I want to sort of make clear. One is that the game still has 50% win rates on every weapon, and that matters. Like, that's really important. The game is balanced. That 50% statistic makes a difference, and it hasn't really changed very much in months. There's small fractional percentage differences. I think the highest it's been in, these past 6 months has been like 6% differences one weapon will be at 47% and one will be at 53%.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
they'll
the
tone
highest
that.
I've
but
heard of it.
That's still really close. So here's the thing. We had eggsoup on here, a few minutes ago, and he touched on this too. This idea of adapting to the game, pushing yourself to become greater, rather than expecting, hey, the devs, you got to change this so that it makes my life easier, because that's not how you play a fighting game. Adapting to different metas and playstyles is what really defines top players. You've got people like Daiku and now Dobrein, and even people besides that, like physeK and Twilight, who have been at the top for a long time, and they've stayed there despite every patch changing up the meta and toning down things and buffing certain things. None of these players were like abusing the meta so much that when they did a bunch of sword nerfs over the past few months, ever since January, Daiku didn't fall off the radar. Like, he's been as strong as ever, despite the fact that he's a very sword heavy player, and that's because he's been adapting to the game. He goes, hey, sword was changed in this way, here's how I sort of change up my playstyle to get the better of my opponents. Here's the optimal combos that I need to be using. Here's the punishes that work. And that's something that he focuses on. Very rarely do I really see Daiku saying, wow, you guys nerf sword, like, you're intentionally trying to sabotage me, right? And like that really does matter. I want to draw a quick parallel to like other fighting games where basically like it's great that BMG does balancing for their game actively, and I love that so much about them. But even in other fighting games, they'll release the product and that's like it. And it's up to the community to come up with what's the best strategy to do, who's the best character, what's the best strategy. Tier lists will come out, but even those tier lists just get trumped after a few months because someone will be like, hey, this bottom tiered character, look at all these combos that no one thought of. Like, I feel like Brawlhalla is not getting that, because instead of people going, hey, how do I improve a low level character? It's, hey, how does BMG improve the low level character? We want them to buff it. I know TVOK, you've spent a lot of time in the fighting game community. Do you have any sort of parallels you might be able to draw for us?
I mean, there's a ton that I can get into, but I'll just pick, I guess, 2 or 3 quick examples. I mean, one of the most adapted games of all time, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It came out around 2000, 2001, something like that, and it's never been patched. People played it for those 10 years before Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out. And just throughout its era of arcade play, all these national tournaments, EVO every year and everything, even back when it was just some regional tournament at a college in South Carolina, it was always just, every 6 months or so, there was this new thing that was, oh my god, that's the strongest thing ever, that's it. Like, at the start, it was going to be Iceman, like, he's the best, he doesn't take chip damage, he can throw beams, like, that's it, he's the best. And then they're like, oh wait, never mind Iceman, like, Blackheart's, like, crazy good. And then they're like, wait a minute, not Blackheart, like, now they're thinking, like, Dhalsim, and they're like, oh wait, not that even. And it just shifted so many times over those years before, finally settling towards other teams. You'll see your Magneto, Sentinels, Storms, Psylocke,
and
all those.
What was the time difference between some of these changes?
I mean, some of them happened pretty quickly, just like a month or two. Some of them happened 6 months. Some of them happened even years. I mean, the most recent ones that we've been seeing was, it's been years that it's okay, Magneto, Sentinel, whatever else you want to fill in, things like that, the best. But then there's this guy that's been working Theory Dhalsim, and he recently has been taking significant games in tournaments against these top players that were seen as invincible with these teams, and now the Theory Dhalsim is becoming in play, and now it's oh my god, that's the best, what's going on?
And I wanna touch on real quick the fact that you said not very long followed by months, because in Brawlhalla,
Yeah.
not very long is days. People will, patch will come out and people said, "Yo, Spear has been really OP for 2 weeks now. 2 weeks. It's been too long. It needs to be nerfed." That we don't get the time span that these other fighting games have, where something we basically have like stable weapons for months, and people have to take the time to develop. Hey, how do I counter this? What weapons should I be using? Sit down and like think about it instead of just hopping in ranked and being like, "Gosh, I can't beat any of these Spear players."
It's like, I don't really know anyone who expects to properly work in and fully adapt a counter to a certain weapon or play style into their play style within 2 weeks of like dreaming it up even. So you got to have the time to like think, analyze it, find the answer, and then implement it and make it second nature into your game. And then you might find out that like, oh yeah, maybe that thing wasn't so good all along. But I don't know. Not that, these balance patches won't or shouldn't happen like, every 2 weeks, because it's been phenomenal the way they've been paying attention to this game and like giving all these updates and everything. But it's just, if you're looking at something and you're like, "Oh my god, it's been overpowered for these past 2 weeks." Like, honestly, how many hours of playtime does that translate to for the vast majority of these people who are saying these things? I mean, it's not really a lot of adaptation time. And, even within that, it really does, since, as you said, like all these win rates, they're very close to 50%. Everything comes down more so to player skill. I mean, even in any kind of game like this, I don't think anyone had picks for, Jean winning Evo with Gen during Street Fighter 4, or Luffy winning with Rose. Like, those were severe underdog picks. People were always like, "Oh yeah, like Rose isn't a bad character, but she'll never win Evo," is kind of what the thought was.
And it was so refreshing to see pugzy beat EXO with Barraza on the week that everyone complained about how Barraza was completely underpowered and totally unrecognized by BMG. Like, pugzy looked at that and said, "Hey, Barraza's got strong weapons. I can totally do something with this." He sat down and, I wasn't there, obviously. I didn't see exactly what he did, but I remember he released a clip about how the side sig had no recovery frames. What that told me was Pugsy's going into training mode and looking at frame data for Barraza. He's studying the character and figuring out what he can do to improve it. And he went so far as to win in a tournament with the character. That's the sort of thing I wish we could see more of throughout the Brawlhalla community, because that's what really elevates players to this higher plane of, competitive play.
I mean, training room is huge. I want to see everyone use more of it, especially with all these new options that they've just added in. It's absolutely fantastic. And if you want to find a way to improve some of your game, yes, playing a lot and playing a bunch of different people is like the biggest factor. But then within that, you've got to find what you might be doing, what they might be doing, and then take a look at it in the training mode. Like, bring it in there and really dissect it.
To kind of paraphrase what all this boils down to is we're spoiled. We are really spoiled in the Brawlhalla community. We get these balance passes from BMG every couple weeks, and we really probably shouldn't. I mean, I admit it, I'm a complainer. I do complain about how things are overpowered, and I do think that there are definitely things that could or should be changed in the game. But at the same time, I know that there are a lot of holes in my gameplay, and I know that I can definitely overcome or at least challenge a lot of these things if I can really focus on myself and put time into the training room. It's just a matter of taking the time and actually going and doing it. And in some respects, all of these balance patches actually make it more difficult, even if the patches are needed, or if something really needs a buff or a nerf. If you change it, it can make it a lot harder to adapt your playstyle to work with it or work against it. So if you get used to dodging out of something that might start up really quickly and it's maybe a little bit too fast, it may be a little bit overpowered, if suddenly they slow it down and suddenly your dodge timing is off, you'll start getting hit by that, even though theoretically that's supposed to be a nerf. It all boils down to, like I said, we're spoiled. So
Yeah, and
I think that, or at least I hope that eventually they'll slow down with the balance patches, they'll get it to a place where they're happy with the balance and they don't have to change everything every few weeks, and I definitely think they've been getting there. Like you said, this balance patch was small. It was very, very small. Not a lot of stuff to it. And
I was gonna say, like, a year ago, balance patches were pages long.
yeah.
Like, here's a huge list of how we changed every single move. And that was necessary then.
Even just
that
a
was
few
when the
months
game
ago,
was first
it
learning
was a
how
lot
to
more like
balance.
that.
yeah,
but-
I do just want to make sure to, since you touched on it a little bit there, that, like, yes, there are certain things, of course, that, do need the balance and
Mhm.
should have it, like, pretty regularly. And I think we all want kind of a bit of a fluid game. So having these, like, changes and alterations, it's good. It keeps people coming back. It keeps players on their toes, things feeling fresh. But for a lot of them, it's really about, like, how you choose to discuss it. When a lot of these people, when they go and they're just like, oh my god, this is absolutely broken, like, there's no way to beat this, so let me go, just post my thought on the Reddit. I know they absolutely love feedback. So all that kind of stuff, but what's even better is if you say, hey, like, this feels really good and here's the reason why, and kind of, like, give the reasoning for it rather than, like, this is broken, throw my hands up in the air, like, nothing that can be done. But if you kind of, like, give your reasoning, walk through it, just be like, all right, this feels, like, really good because of these reasons, and you start a discussion and you invite everyone else to be like, okay, I feel that it's really good because of these, what does everybody else think? And they get to chime in, and just all that more structured feedback is so good for the game, and I definitely want to see that continue and more of that. Just I don't know, a lot of people tend to fly off the handle if it's like, well, I made this post and it got 3 upvotes and now it's like, they didn't change it enough, and it's like, oh my gosh.
But BMG does respond to that sort of thing. I
Oh, yeah.
remember in the week that Pugsy won the tournament with Barraza, since people were complaining about Barraza being underpowered, they did give him a sizable
Oh, yeah.
buff, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's the thing.
In my
Like,
opinion,
there's-
he didn't really need it.
There is something to be said for the knowledge of crowds. I mean, this is like it's a documented thing that large groups of people on, like, a lot of, I don't know, statistical data will give you better feedback and better results than just polling the one person. So you get better answers, more accurate answers from large data sets of people's feedback. And were there certain things in Barraza's kit that, like, yeah, Barraza's not a bad character because, he's high armor, guns, and axe, like, both very good weapons. But as far as, like, his signatures, a lot of people were kind of avoiding using them, and there must be a reason why, and all that feedback kind of hit on that. Like, okay, well, this one feels really awkward for what it does, or this one doesn't have as much reward for how much it risks, and just all these different kind of balance things that maybe no one's really able to fully articulate or just kind of pinpoint. But if everybody's kind of like, this one I kind of stay away from it, like, there's usually a reason.
Yeah, I'm I'm gonna agree with basically all of that. And so, I guess the point I wanted to make here was, hey, there's more to the game than simply going out there and being like, riots on the streets, posters, Barraza needs buffs, Spear is overpowered, gauntlets are crazy, I don't know how to deal with them. Go into training mode, because training mode's awesome. Or even sit down with someone in a custom and, like, have them to attack you like this. Try to find a friend. You guys can both train against each other with certain weapons. Learn how to counter things. Learn how to, find new combos, things like that. Improve yourself so that you can beat everyone else. Because that's how you can really get yourself up there. Like even talking from like a selfish standpoint, asking for a buff or a nerf changes it for everyone. Like, what if you figure out something unique, use that to your advantage, because that will, you can win a tournament with it, and after that, of course, people will discover it and learn how to use it. But like, I think that can really help the game, the community, everyone, with making games more exciting, and just in general, like introducing people to new and awesome things that they never thought about in Brawlhalla. And I can't wait to see more people do that.
I also just really quick want to touch on, in addition to adapting, there's a lot more things that you can learn. A lot of these top players will counterpick legends based on who their opponent picks because they feel like it gives them a better matchup. There are players like me who I only play one legend, and that's a huge weakness of mine because I can play guitars and I can play hammer. I feel like if I'm playing against a core, my guitars have a very bad matchup against the gauntlets. So either I have a hammer or I don't do very well. If I had the ability to play another legend, like say Bodvar, and I could have the sword or the hammer, and I feel like the sword has a much better matchup against the gauntlets than the guitars do, I would be in a much more advantageous situation. That's why you see a lot of top-level players playing so many legends, learning so many legends, because if they can have quality in addition to quantity, then it can do wonders for their game. It's really a big thing that more people should look into.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps up our discussion and the podcast in general. Leave your thoughts in the description or the Reddit post or wherever you want, saying, what you sort of thought about that, because I'm very interested to hear the community's sort of reaction to hopefully being more willing to change themselves instead of, yelling about game changes. But in general, thank you to my co-hosts, TWK and physeK, for coming onto the podcast. Thank you so much, eggsoup, for being our guest this week, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.